Thank you for joining us today for our kickoff of our Finance Innovation Week. Thank you again for joining us today. When I think about all of the sessions that we've done over the past year, I think Finance Innovation Week is one of my favorites. You know, we're in December, we've moved through the financial quarter, we've had experience throughout the quarters, throughout the year, thinking about our finance and accounting processes. So I really am excited about this kickoff, this Innovation Week, to really share some stories of how other organizations do it, how BlackLine can help optimize, and begin those discussions going into the new year, 2022, as to how we can optimize and make things easier for the accounting and finance team. So with that said, let's get started. So again, today's our kickoff day. We've had a number of sessions throughout today. You're here now joining us. Today's session is going to be RGP, the business case equation for close optimization has changed. Really looking forward to this discussion. Again, this is Finance Innovation Week, so please, if you have time, think about joining us for future sessions. Coming up tomorrow, we'll hear from one of our partners, Clearsulting. Also, we'll have a discussion about SAP and BlackLine and how SAP and BlackLine better together can really help optimize the accounting function within the organization. Additionally, on Thursday, we'll have an additional session in regards to Logistics 101. So before we begin, we wanted to cover a few housekeeping items. At the bottom of your audience console are multiple application widgets you can use. If you have any questions during the webcast, you can click on the Q&A widget at the bottom and submit your question. We will try to answer these throughout the webcast, but if a fuller answer is needed or if we run out of time, we'll answer it later via email. We do capture all questions for reference. You can expand your slide area by clicking on the maximize icon on the top right of the slide area or by dragging the bottom right corner of the slide area. In the links widget, you will find a copy of the slides and additional resources for download. If you experience any technical difficulty, please click on the help widget, which covers common technical issues. Also, simply refreshing your browser can clear common issues such as slides not advancing or loss of sound. During this session, participants can earn up to 1 CPE credit when they meet these requirements, participate in the entire webinar, and answer 3 out of the 4 polling questions. Your certificate will be emailed to you by cpe@transformation.blackline.com. Please be sure to safe list that email address and reach out if you have any questions or issues. You can also enter to win a few prizes by submitting questions throughout the week. You'll have the chance to win gift cards for Uber, Amazon, MasterCard, and additional brands of your choice, which is perfect timing given that we're moving into holiday season. To enter, submit your questions using our Q&A widget during the webinar. We have different levels of prizes based on how many webinars you attend and submit a question for. More information can be found in the links widget on your console. At BlackLine, we believe it's important to give back to our communities in meaningful ways. We want to give you the opportunity during our webinars this week to learn about organizations covering many different causes. See the Give Back widget in your webinar console to learn more about a different organization featured for each webinar. So now with that said, let's get started with our webinar today. Again, the business case equation for close optimization has changed. Kicking off our Finance Innovation Week, as we just discussed, and we have RGP with us today.
All right.
And joining us.
Thank you, Jason.
Sure.
Go ahead.
I was going to introduce Steve McKechnie. Steve, RGP, he's joined us on a number of sessions throughout this past year. One comes to mind, our August Best Practices Summit. Steve has a ton of experience enabling finance and accounting optimization within organizations. So really thankful for him to join us today to share some content.
Thank you, Jason. I appreciate it. And thank you, everyone, for being here. Appreciate it. Whether it's good morning, good evening, or good afternoon. Steve McKechnie, and I lead our RGP's BlackLine Practice. And just really thank you for being here. Ellen Klass, who's there next to me, my colleague and fellow contributor to this presentation, and just wanted to shout out and say thank you, Ellen. This is a follow-up to Beyond the Black last month. I hope you were able to attend. If not, I believe it is now available on blackline.com and able to see a lot of the great sessions that were there. We wanted to spend a little time today, especially as we head into the end of the year. And if I forget to say it later, I'll just want to wish everybody happy holidays. Hope you have a wonderful last few weeks of this year as we look forward going into 2022. Hard to believe it's here already. And so thank you also, BlackLine, for having us. I know that this topic sounds a little bit different. You may be scratching your head going, what are these guys talking about? Well, part of this is definitely the planning ahead. It's, in essence, a case for change. Things that are in your control and things that aren't. Some things that we can influence and other things we get influenced by them. And so we're going to have Q&A here at the end. And if you have questions, feel free to put them in during this session. We will, like Jason said, we will try to get to them during this session. If not, we will follow up later. So again, thank you for being here. So the close optimization business case. Yes, there's a business case around close optimization. Why else would we do these crazy things trying to optimize our close? It used to be that business case back then, and I'm not going to say how many years ago because it's been a while. But it used to be it was about two metrics, really, cost and resources. Even as recently as 2019, these are some of the metrics that are being taken, are being used, measures are being taken. And so what is, the total cost to perform accounting activities per $1,000 of revenue, also number of FTEs. So it gets very interesting when you're looking at, well, how do we optimize? Where do we start? What do we need to do? Well, formerly, it was about reducing the cost of labor. Either reduce the cost of the individual or reduce the number of individuals. That doesn't necessarily work anymore, okay? And so, by the way, when this note here, I want to make sure I bring it out. Insufficient processes. This is not anything negative about people. A lot of it is around the process. Inefficient processes, tools, technologies, even data issues really increase the need for additional resources for FTEs. So this is not a slam in any way on the people. This is really, how do we optimize our close, get more out of our folks? How do we contribute more? How do we quit spending 80% of our time extracting data, putting it into spreadsheets, trying to reformat it, and then only having 20% of our time left to actually do accounting work? And so a lot of this ties in together. So the old close optimization case, that was then. So what is now? There we go. A lot of different methods, resulting equations and calculations, from the simple number of days to close, and how are my controls doing? To the complex. This is where some clients have gone really multi-component, multi-level, and then even weighting some of these. Risk is 30%, TCO 20%, and having this weighted average number come out. Not naming names, but there might have been some engineers involved with one or two of those. But the thing is, no two companies are the same. Everybody is different. Every company is different. There's no one size fits all. And so why change? Well, change because you have to, change because you want to. And in most cases, it's both. And some companies, they keep it simple. It's like, I just know. I just know what we need to do. That's great. But things are getting more complex. And so to that point, again, no two companies the same, no one size fits all. And a lot of companies haven't updated their close optimization business case in a while. Whether it's a formal document or in somebody's head, it worked 10 years ago. It still works now. And so part of that is wanting to question, ask, what's the right duration? How long should I go between reviewing and revising my business case? And so with that, just think what your business case for close optimization is at your company. Yes, we do have a polling question coming up, but with your close optimization business case, it could be very, very simplistic. We're just, we're doing the old school, cost per resource, number of resources. Maybe we've moved to days to close and controls, or maybe it is a lot of these multiple components. What are the corporate strategies, the total cost to ownership? I've involved my IT team, all of those things. So we're going to go to our first polling question, and there we go. Jason?
Thank you, Steve. So, yes, our first polling question for today. How would you rate the complexity of your company's close optimization business case? A, simple. B, moderate. C, complex. Or D, I don't know. We don't have a business case for this.
The good news, Jason, there's no wrong answer.
Exactly.
Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely no wrong answer at all. So
what are your thoughts, Steve, in regards to what do you think we'll see here as far as our top response? What do you find out in the field?
I'm going to guess the first one or the last one. It's either simple or don't know.
Okay, cool. We're getting some responses in. I'll say let's give it another 30 seconds or so, and I'll move over and we can review the results, see if Steve was correct, and see what the top ones are.
Yeah. Cool.
All right, let's check out our results for today for polling question number 1. Okay, well, It looks like our leading answer was B, moderate, followed by C, complex.
Only wrong answer was the one I gave. That is fantastic. Love it. No, This is great. Thank you. I did note there's a couple of questions here. One of them was asked by a couple of folks around general accounting. Does it mean the consolidation department? That was on the earlier survey from APQC. Yes, it did include the consolidation department, all part of the general accounting, including the consolidation department. So yes, thank you. Great question. All right. So, Steve, you said things are a lot different. Things have changed. Well, what do you mean, Steve? What has changed? Well, we tried to break it into 4 different areas. The first one starting with regulations. not to open up any wounds that may be healing, but there's ever increasing regulations by country, by region, globally. U.S. GAAP, SEC, IFRS, taxing authorities, legal municipalities, all of them. And it's not like they're going to decrease. Many of us you need to get that T-shirt. I survived revenue recognition. I survived leasing. But then what may be coming next? As many of you have seen, many of you are going through now. Most ERPs are migrating to the cloud, going from what was an on-prem solution, now going into the cloud. So and forgive me if I sound like cynical Steve, somebody's going to screw something up. And it's going to require some changes, some new oversight, new regulation. Something's going to happen. There was a time and expense system, cloud-based, that got held up for ransomware just this past weekend. So that's just me, my cynical nature, forgive me, that there may be something coming down there. Another potential trigger is the remote and distributed workforce. It's not going away anytime soon. Again, forgive me, cynical Steve, somebody's going to screw it up for the rest of us. There's going to be some sort of regulation coming down, a new, got to do it, got to track, got to report. Some companies are already somewhat doing that, but wanting to make sure that this is all captured. That'll be yet another change. So that increased regulation, wanting to find a tool, a process, trying to, with those to help be prepared for the next one that's coming. So you get to the point, we'll touch on it here in a second, about a scalable solution. And more people, more spreadsheets, pretty much not going to be that solution. Too fast. So with auditors and requirements, somewhat tied in, but outside the regulation. And so auditors, internal or external, increasing focus on controls and demand for evidence. Show me more, show me more. And this is where, for example, with BlackLine, having a central place that your auditor can go, look at what work has been completed for the assigned accounts as part of the audit, and be able to do it right then and there within BlackLine, not having to pull data, pull information from your ERP or other sources, put it in a spreadsheet, save the spreadsheet, and upload it to your external auditor's website or Dropbox. Decreasing acceptance of spreadsheets as the source of accurate truth. This has been a long time coming. And seeing more and more external auditors taking a dimmer and dimmer view of spreadsheets, particularly with what we've started calling inherited spreadsheets. The person who created it handed off to someone else, who handed off to someone else, who now handed it to the person who has it, who really doesn't understand, maybe knows not to mess up these formulas so that they don't mess up the spreadsheet. So that becomes an increasing level of concern with the external auditors, as well as with a lot of our clients or customers, realizing, yeah, this could go south in a pretty bad way. Also adjusting to corporate strategies. That's one that a lot of times is not included in the thought process here. Well, what is our corporate strategy? We're going to do a lot of acquisitions. What do I need to do to change that? How do I get prepared for it, yet still get all the work that I have to do right now? Are we going to have to start multiple ERPs? What about the chart of accounts? How are we going to adjust for that? How do we prepare for it? And so I'm not trying to make anybody feel angsty, especially toward the end of the year. And for many folks going into their year-end close, not trying to get you worked up. Just these are things to consider. Again, as some of these shifts that are taking place to be aware of, to incorporate. And so as part of that equation, what is the level of impact? What is the likelihood of it? And so these would be things to build out that business case equation. Now to the next, there we go. Systems and tools. I don't need to remind everybody, but IT resources are also impacted, that limited capacity. I know that we hear things about the great resignation, things like that, do more with the folks we got. IT similarly. And so they're just as constrained as accounting. And what I've always found interesting is that there's like that seasonal challenge, if you will. For publicly traded companies, many of the IT team members are unable to move anything into production during the fourth quarter or the latter part of the first quarter, which sort of makes it difficult for accounting right before they go into year-end close in the first quarter of the next fiscal year. And so that continues to be a challenge. Don't know if we'll ever be able to solve for it, definitely not today. But as part of the burden, the challenge on IT are the increasing desires to automate, reduce the administrative efforts. Can we have the system do more of this for us? Well, which system to do what? Yes, we want more automation. Increasing data needs. This goes back to many of the regulations, many of the requirements. Show me more data. That then puts a further strain on the folks involved with your data management, integration, access, its integrity. Please note, I didn't say governance. I don't want to spark anybody, but all of those things around your data, and that the fact that you need to get more of it from different sources to be able to do your job. Also, the increasing role of the CISO and CTO as business partners. That's the Chief Information Security Officer and the Chief Technology Officer. Them needing to become more and more involved as business partners, working together with you, working not as adversaries, but as collaboration partners. Here's the business problem. How do we fix it together? How do we resolve it? And so with this desire to increase automation, increase data needs, it really becomes more and more of a squeeze on everyone. And so that's where the teaming, the partnering, needing to come together. And as I mentioned before, a lot of ERPs are going to the cloud. Therefore, your IT team is probably going to be further constrained. So it's not to be doom and gloom, but these are some of the factors to consider and to build in. And then, of course, there's the people side. We all know it. There's a huge challenge right now on talent acquisition. Limited supply of qualified resources. The good ones, you get them, you do everything you can to keep them. Got a slide coming up on that. We continue, like I said, we'll continue to have a remote and distributed workforce. Here's the other thing where that equation from 10 years ago, needing to change it. Recent graduates demand more technology and more work-life balance. For some of us, the first weekend of every month being part of the monthly close, you lose that weekend, you just sort of get used to it. Folks are coming out of school in the past 10 years or so, they're like, why would I want to do that? They're also a push to get rid of spreadsheets. They're great with automation. Spreadsheets came out, the debate was, is it going to be Excel or Lotus 1-2-3? Yes, I'm that old. But hey, what a great step up. What a great way. Let's leave the 10 key and slide rules behind us. We have spreadsheets. A lot of the graduates coming out now, similar view on spreadsheets as we had on 10 keys and slide rules. They want the technology. And as I said earlier, this is where that scalable challenge comes in. Eventually, you just can't add more people and more spreadsheets. It's just not going to work. And many companies have started running into that. And that is why they are looking at more. They want more out of their ERP. They want more out of BlackLine as a solution to be able to help with the close optimization. All of that coming together. And so let me this slide here, and I just call out kudos to Ellen and many other of our RGP leaders and practice leaders. Really appreciate this. Yes, we got sources from different folks, but really came together to pull some numbers. What is the value retention of your people? $4,000 just defined and signed, just the hiring cost. And then anywhere, we found different sources, 33, 50, 75% to replace an employee on their base salary, in addition to their base salary. We've had conversations internally at RGP. Some, it might be around specialties. Many of us think it has to do that it's not really being measured, which is somewhat scary and somewhat, somebody's probably going to go out, do a paper, get a PhD, and we will thank them for that, Dr. Whomever. But for example, an $80,000 a year employee, it's not just $4,000 to replace them for that $80,000 salary. The middle one, 50%, it's actually going to cost $120,000 for that $80,000 employee. This is training, onboarding, lost productivity. You know, you also have to realign with your customers, your buyers, your organization. Not to mention that if somebody was doing stuff in spreadsheets, that person leaves, that's a lot of tribal knowledge walking out the door. So all of that to say, that's a lot of things going on, a lot of complexity. We're going to touch on level of complexity here in a second, but that's a lot more complex than it was than just number of resources and the cost per resource. So with that, we're coming up on another poll. So, and again, no wrong answer. Jason?
Thank you, Steve. And yes, Steve totally presented some great content that just emphasizes the need for close optimization, enabling the organization with actionable insights. Great discussion so far. So yes, with that said, let's move into our second polling question for today. So polling question number 2. What has been the biggest change that has impacted your company's close optimization business case? A, regulations. B, auditors and requirements. C, systems and tools. D, people. Or E, more than one of the above. I'm going to put you on the spot again, Steve.
No, don't you dare, because I was wrong last time. I can't go 0 for 2.
What are you thinking? What are you thinking? What is our top response for this? What are you thinking? Based on your experience and what you're seeing.
I'm going to go one of the last two, either people or more than one of the above. I know that people is really impacting a lot of folks now. And thank you, many of you guys in the comments. Great comment here is that, there we go. Turnover creates more turnover as employees take on more work to cover for people who left until a replacement can be found and trained. Thank you. That is fantastic comment. It's true. And you're right. It does have that snowball or domino effect. And then one other question here. Somebody, man, you guys are good at these questions and comments. If you had to pick one, which is more important to close optimization, qualified people or innovation? I'm going to take the last one here and say both. But no, you've got qualified people to execute it, and then innovation to continue raising the bar, qualified people. And I do think that it's actually, they go hand in hand. Qualified people are going to want to further that innovation. Like with BlackLine, hey, we're able to get 45% of our reconciliations auto-reconciled. Great. How do we get it to 55, 60, 65? So I'm going to stop there because, Jason, we have a polling question, don't we?
Yes. We'll review the results, but Steve, it brings me back to an analogy that I kind of use often where, hey, I like to work out. And so when I think about going to a traditional gym, you got to go to the gym, you go into the bench press. Hey, is someone using the bench press machine? And then, hey, if no one's using it, I got to clear the rack. I got to put my weights on. I have to do these things just before I lift. And essentially close optimization, when you think about that and implement the process, it really allows you to go in and do what you're intended to do, which is focus on the close, focus on the data, focus on actionable insights versus, hey, taking that time to set things up. So that's just something that I kind of think about and I use as a comparison to this. So yeah, great discussion. And then to your point in regards to people, there is a need to come in, have the environment set to do what you was trained to do without having to kind of go into a battle to just, get the job done. So yeah, let's look at our results. So yes, to the point of what we've been discussing, it looks like our leading answer is more than one of the above in regards to the biggest change that has impacted our company's close optimization process for a business case, followed by systems and tools. Looks like third, we have people, which we've mentioned.
Yep. Thank you. All right, we've got a couple more slides and we'll get into some Q&A here shortly. Very, very quickly, this slide, more for reference. We'll have a copy of this presentation later, but really the elements of a good business case to drive change. Haven't said it until this point, but this is really to help you help yourself with a business case. And part of this also is to further drive the change, the optimization, and a lot of times doing it through tools such as BlackLine. But real quickly, what is the problem statement? How do you go from I've got a gut for what's going on, or I know, to multiple factors to consider? It's really wanting to be more value focused. So what are you going to quickly analyze and do metrics on? Some current state understanding, options recommendations. What's that path forward? I have found that a lot of executives like to have options. It's like, here's the situation. I'm trying to bring solutions. I see 2, 3, 4 options here. Which one can we enact on right now? Which ones can we get started? And so that helps when you come providing a solution. The business case becomes a tool by which to do that. And so it doesn't need to be a science project. So I made my comment about engineers earlier. We understand everybody has a short time frame. We got to get this done, get something done quickly and of value. So good enough doesn't have to be perfect. Could be perfect enough, maybe 80% done, but the gain is so obvious and the need is so obvious. Let's get started on it right away. And then also wanting to make sure, set up a regular review and an adaptation. So I'm going to skip over that slide real quickly. That one's for reference, but really want to start getting into what are some of the things to do. And you guys are already popping in great questions, so thank you very much. A lot of times, just start with 3 buckets. What have I got to have right now? Second bucket, what's needed. And third, the nice to have or would like to have. And then sometimes it's helpful if you do, say, just 15% in that first bucket, knowing you can't do all of it at once. Maybe it's just 10%, but at least something to get started. So questions by which to prioritize these, a couple of them. There's others, but a lot of these, you almost look at it from top down, bottom up. What are your greatest pain points? That's from the team. What are your greatest pain points? I've now have twice as much to do because half the team left. Things like that. And so what are my greatest pain points? That's bottom up. Top down as well, what's your corporate strategy? If your CFO, CAO has certain items in their variable compensation, their bonus, not that you have to know details, but what are those components? Because they're going to become important to the entire team to help make sure that that variable comp is obtained. So what's important to the CFO, CAO is important to everybody. How do you incorporate that into the business case? That helps you help them while you help yourself as well. Do set aside some thought time. This one is the hardest to do, and I'm the worst offender at not doing this. So this is a note to me as well. This is me looking in the mirror. My boss will hear this recording if he's not on, and will remind me of that third bullet and tell me, hey, Steve, when's the last time you set aside some thought time? Okay, so I'm confessing now to everybody. But do set aside some of that, even if it's just 30 minutes in a room quietly, just to think. Some blank sheet of paper. For me, I just clear out the desk and have a couple of blank sheets of paper, and I'll just start writing stuff down. That's what works for me. Put down some ideas, things like that. Perfection, not required. It's the 80-20 rule, okay? You can get started with some things now to get some gains, even though you may not have the full picture. BlackLine, that's why we typically recommend to our clients start with account recs and task management. That gives the most lift to the overall organization, and therefore frees up time to do more value add, gets rid of some of the has the system do the administrative time. Task management, also allowing, as opposed to, I used to call it cube hopping, during close, go around, talk to everybody, but as opposed to, where is everybody, fill out the spreadsheet, load it up on SharePoint. No, BlackLine has that real-time visibility, reporting to be able to see, okay, we're doing here. I notice somebody's a little behind on their reconciliations. Let me move these two over here to somebody who's a little bit ahead and do some workload balancing. So those are some of the things that BlackLine is able to do very quickly early on. Measure to create a baseline and track improvement. And again, may not have to be perfect, but how many days does it take to close? It takes us 8 days. Well, 8 days hard, then we have to spend 3 more days doing soft close because we have meetings, follow-up. So it's really 11 days hard close. 8 soft plus 3, 11 days hard close. What if we got that down to 10 or 9? Maybe we only have to work 1 weekend a month. What if we got it down to maybe 5 and we don't have to work any weekends a month? That would be pretty cool. And so that is part of utilizing and optimization tools such as, again, BlackLine. But part of that is, where do I start? Well, where is the pain? Is it the days to close? What is it? And if we can shorten the days to close without having a loss in efficiency, without having a loss in controls, then it's a win for just about everybody. Prepare for adjustment and establish continuous improvement. This is a bit more strategic, but you want to at least have a starting point. But that adjustment, as your companies, as your corporate strategies change, you want to be able to adjust accordingly. Organizational change, adjust accordingly. And as I said earlier, establish continuous improvement. More changes are coming, be it regulations or whatever else. And then lastly, don't be afraid to ask for help. There's no shame in that, okay? So it's fine. We've been there. We've seen this. And so with that, you want to, get that internal as well as external view. I skipped over one of my comments here. Talk to your team. Get input from your team and your stakeholders. Talk to your team, even if it's just like, okay, guys, I know we have this. We're just going to spend 15 minutes right now. I not only want to hear what your pain points are, but tell me, what are things we can do to make things better? How do we get some of this time spent pulling data into a spreadsheet reduced? So things like that to get the pull from the team. It also helps get early buy-in. And then with the stakeholders, that could be your auditor, could be management, could be any number of folks. And anybody who has an interest in the close is a stakeholder. So all of that, getting their input to get more of a holistic view. And again, doesn't have to be perfect, but perfect enough just to at least get some things started. So I think we've got a couple more polling questions, and I think we're going to open it for questions. Is that right, Jason?
Yes.
All right.
Well, it looks like we have our third polling question for today. Where do you plan to start updating or creating your company's close optimization business case? A, setting aside some thought time. B, looking at our next close differently. And that could be addressing pain points, measurements, etc. Or C, reviewing our corporate strategy. D, talking to the team. Or E, other. There's something else maybe considering.
It doesn't look like the submit button is up.
Oh, okay.
There we go.
You know what? There we go. Okay, cool. Technical difficulties on my end. I apologize.
There we go. This is definitely an engaged group. This is awesome. Thank you, everyone.
Yes, thank you. So, Steve, I'm going to put you on the spot again.
Of course.
Just in your experience, yep, right. What is that starting point? I think about getting that quick win, but, to kind of step back into that process. What are you thinking? What do you expect kind of as that starting point?
I think, to me, and maybe it's just me, I sort of tipped my hand earlier, setting aside some thought time, is just take a step back. You used an analogy earlier, and I love analogies. One I use here is, it's like if you move into a new house, new apartment, new home, anything that is wrong, write it down. Because as soon as you see it, if it's just a slightly dented doorknob or whatever, write it down, make your list. Because after about 6 weeks, you get used to it, and you just sort of get numb to it. And so with that, set aside some thought time. What are the things that your team does great? What are they doing well? What do you like about systems? But what are things that can also be improved? And so that to me is that thought time. And I sometimes I just have to, this sounds really strange, but it's me. If it's not sweeping, when I was in college, my apartment, the cleanest it ever was during finals. But that's by sweeping and cleaning up. It's how I got my brain going on where my list. That was my thought time, was literally with a broom. And no, I am not open to be hired to come to your house, Jason, and sweep. No. So sorry, you're on your own on that one. I'm sorry.
No, you're much more needed to help organizations optimize the finance and accounting organization. So yeah, no, totally. Yep, that's it. So let's go over our polling results. So it looks like our number one answer is B, looking at our next close differently.
Good.
I feel that personally as, kind of having that prior experience as a practitioner, really taking the knowledge that you shared with us, Steve, really applying that and thinking about, hey, the current close process and seeing, hey, how can we think about it differently? So that top answer, I definitely feel looks like, hey, talking to the team is our second in regards to results.
Yeah.
Again, kind of having that experience and stepping through it, that would be my next step. Hey, talking to the stakeholders, talking to everyone that's involved in the process and just getting their input and really just kind of bouncing ideas around to kind of take that next step. And hey, hand in hand, I would say is that next resulting answer that we see here, setting aside some thought time, just really thinking about, hey, what we're doing now, the things that you've mentioned, Steve, and then also, hey, where do we want to go? And then that falls in line with our next answer result, reviewing our corporate strategy. That's something that we have to think about as that last additional step. So really good responses. This has really been an insightful discussion. I kind of have my own thoughts. But I know they're impacted by my experience in different business models. So I've been very curious to see how these results go, to see how, hey, does it change based on business model or just different things in general. So no, this has been a really great discussion. So with that, I think we have one more polling question coming up. So let's get to it. So our fourth polling question for today, how long do your New Year's resolutions usually last? This is a great one. Great question. Yep. Curious to get the feedback and responses from the audience on this one. Let's say A, I start strong but tap out before the end of Q1. I think that would be my response on that one. But hey, B, I make it into Q2 or Q3. C, I successfully stay on track through the entire year. I wish. D, what's a resolution? Hey, that might be my response too. So what do you think, Steve?
I'm going to guess everybody here is going to at least get through Q1, make it to Q2, Q3. That's not me. But I know that I'm thinking the second or third one, because we got folks here are really committed, and I would not surprise me if folks are saying, yep, they make it through the whole year. But that would not be me. I'm sort of with you, Jason, where I may tap out pretty early.
Yeah, it's tough. It really depends on what it is, but it is. It's it's definitely tough. So let's give it a couple more seconds, see what we get as far as responses, give some more time for results to come in. But I'm very curious about this one. Does the audience think like we do, or there's some differences? Yeah. Let's give them about 5 seconds here.
Okay. I'm going to be impressed no matter what. I set the bar low on this one. Everybody's going to exceed me easily.
Okay, cool. All right, let's review the results for this one. This, out of all the questions, I'm most curious about the responses on this one. Okay. Hey.
Nice.
Our leading answer was A, I start strong but tap out before the end of Q1. Totally understand there. What's a resolution? Hey, that's crossed my mind too. So that's our second leading polling response, followed by make it into Q2 or Q3. Appreciate the dedication there. And then, hey, I successfully stay on track through the entire year. Definitely props for that. Great responses there.
That's awesome. Love it. So do we want to answer some questions?
Yes, let's move to some questions here. I'm going to, Steve, check out the inbox. Let's see.
I saw a couple that jumped out, and one of them, somebody had a really good thing they shared. They said, you know what, my year-end close is coming up. I'm going to be taking notes, but with the business case mindset. So I thought that was really good. I'm not saying the name, but the person who wrote it there, that was fantastic. Great share that you're going into your year-end close with a different mindset. And my guess is that you would like to have the next year's year-end close be a lot smoother and better than the one coming up. So those taking notes, I think, is a great idea. Several folks here asked about how long does it take to implement BlackLine, and then what are the number of close days saved that we've seen on average. On average, for recs and tasks, put it in parallel, takes about 6 to 8 weeks, depends upon the client, sometimes more, sometimes less. And then number of days saved, anywhere from was it 1/4 to 1/3 days of the close shaved off. But a lot of it is also about getting folks having the time to do more investigative work. Some get very, very excited. We've had some clients where they go live within first month or two. Over 50% of their reconciliations are automatically done for them by BlackLine, which is great. And so when you're like, oh my gosh, what would I do if half of my reconciliations were automatically done for me by the system? What would I do with that extra time? Would I get an extra weekend back? Would I actually be able to do the things I went to college and got my CPA to do?
Right.
And so, and then that builds on it with additional products that BlackLine offers, be it with transaction matching, journal entry, all of these other ones that can further you down that road, down that path. Somebody asked also a question, the one item that you would change about BlackLine, what doesn't necessarily meet your needs? Ooh, tough question. But I will be honest. I can't help but be honest. If there was one thing I would want to change, it's actually in account reconciliations and the general list template, which allows clients to continue doing spreadsheets for reconciliations and then just use the general list template to load it into BlackLine as if BlackLine were a storage device. I would try to limit, it should be the exception to the exception to the exception to the rule to use the general list template, because it in essence becomes a crutch in my terminology, or you're relying on the training wheels too long and you're not really riding the bike. So I don't see us ever being able to successfully have BlackLine turn that off as a reconciliation template. But I think the thinking behind it needs to change so it's not a go-to. It's almost because I can't do anything else right now. I got to get 80% of my recs in. This is the one-off that I'll deal with later. So that may get me in trouble with the powers that be at BlackLine, so forgive me, but I know no other way to answer than be honest.
No, not at all. And I would just double down on that point and say, hey, your experience as a practitioner is definitely good feedback. One thing I would note in regards to close and the days of the close, there's that piece that we talked about as far as the time it takes in, I don't know, lack of a better term, saying manual labor to get the job done. But there's also that piece of getting the data. My prior experience, I worked in budgeting and planning. So the beginning parts of my job was getting the actuals, getting the actual reality to make that assessment, to adjust plans and build plans throughout the quarter. There's definitely that benefit of having accurate data, but having timely, accurate data.
Yes.
That's a huge benefit towards making that business case. And I think definitely during this time where business and the economic environment is dynamic, I don't think there's a term to say, hey, too fast. As soon as you can get through that process and validate everything's correct, it just more enables the business to be able to succeed. So just kind of something I wanted to add to that in regards to when I think about this topic, making the business case. There's definitely a lot of benefits to making that transition where possible, as an organization really kind of steps back, have that discussion, look at what they're doing, and just seeing how BlackLine and a partner such as RGP can help.
Yeah, perfect. I think we got time for 2 more questions. I see a couple here. This is an incredibly engaged group. This is fantastic. Talking about reporting, getting it meaningful to the stakeholders. How could BlackLine help with this? Any field in BlackLine, I think just about every field in BlackLine, is able to be reported on, reporting and dashboarding. It's just sometimes it's a matter of flipping it on and using it. We did this for a client, is it this year or last year, turned it on, and they're like, where did that come from? Well, you had purchased it, it just hadn't been turned on yet. And all of a sudden, not only were they like, oh my gosh, this is great, it's also real time. And they were about to set up, they had just about started another project that was all about reporting, pulling data from various sources. And to your point, Jason, some of that data was going to be upwards of 30 days old. Here it is in BlackLine, it's real time. So not only did they get what they wanted, they got it faster, and they were able to save money so they didn't have to go off and do this reporting initiative. And then one more here, and I just saw the clock. So how do you navigate the business case when there is resistance to change? Where's the biggest impact to month-end close? This is a great question. There is always going to be resistance to change, okay? Mm-hmm. A lot of times folks are more willing to change because they have to. 636, 842, external auditor, do this or you're going to report, or it's a material issue. So those tend to motivate folks. But if it's one of those things where you want to, what is the cost to retain? What is the loss if we don't do it? Making it into more of a numerical situation. And again, doesn't have to be perfect. Put a range, okay? And therefore, you can argue with emotions, perception. It's hard to argue with the numbers. And it's one of those where doing a quick ROI if necessary, well, then let's build out the business case to further justify it. Because change is not easy. And especially when folks are like, oh my gosh, I'm doing the work of 3. Please don't change anything. That'll make me have to do the work of 4. That is a challenge. And it's, how do you make time, or how do you make time to take time to save time? And that's really, how do we get this to happen? And that's where BlackLine and RGP can help our clients as they make that change.
No, that's great, Steve. Thank you so much. Do we have time for any more questions? We can always get back via email. Looks like we're getting close on time. I appreciate you addressing the reporting question, because that is a topic of all the things that we were talking about. Just making sure, hey, the key stakeholders within the organization have those actionable insights that they need to make key business decisions and keep the business moving. Do we have time for any more? I think we're getting close on time.
Yep. We're top of the hour.
Top of the hour. Well, Thank you everyone for joining us today. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule. given where we're at in the calendar year. Please join us tomorrow for future sessions. Again, we're going to have SAP and BlackLine better together. We're going to have a session with Clearsulting in regards to driving alignment at all levels, the power of communication. That's going to touch on some things and kind of take that next step of the items that Steve talked about earlier today. So please continue to join us throughout the week. When I think about the entire Finance Innovation Week, very key topics that can really help us as an organization, accounting and finance team, become more efficient, optimize, save more time, and become a better partner where possible for the strategy parts of the organization. So again, thank you for joining us and looking forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great week. Happy holidays.
Bye.